Okay, so what we've got now is we're going to listen to part of a speaking test. We've got a part 2 and then a part 3 follow-up question. We're going to listen to what this candidate says, and I'm going to make some notes on what they can improve on. With the topic is describing a book you want to read again. What is the book? What's it about? When did you read it for the first time? Why do you want to read it again? Okay, so lots of chances to use past tense. Make sure your answer's all focusing in the past tense. And lots of opportunity to use some nice grammar or more complex sentences. So let's see what this candidate has come up with. So let me just get my pen. Okay.
The book that I want to read again is called Homo Deus, written by Yuval Harari. It is about the author's insight and prediction of the future, but not about a prophecy. This author tells his perspectives based on the story of the world in this book. I felt he pointed out a quite sharp yet novel view of human characteristics, and it was very impressive. I read it last year for the first time. When I watched a TV show, one of the hosts in the TV show recommended this book and explained about the story of the book briefly, and it was very intriguing. The reason why I want to read this book again is there were some difficult explanations and historical backgrounds that made my mind go blank. So I want to read again thoroughly and observe the entire story, what the author wanted to deliver to readers. Because he explained his perspectives, and the perspectives was new to me. When I read it at the first time, I was so busy to follow the author's views. But next time, I think it will be fun thinking of my personal views and adding a little of criticism by myself.
Okay, so overall, I thought that was a very good answer. It was comprehensive. I mean, in terms of fluency, there were very few issues of pausing or hesitation. She maintained a very natural flow. She gave enough detail on her different responses and different answers that it felt like she was giving me a full answer. She wasn't stopping and pausing and having to think twice about what she was going to say, so that was great. A couple of issues. Overall, her pronunciation was very good. Her speed of speech was very clear. Her intonation was nice. It was good to be able to hear and understand what was going on and what she was saying. There was just a couple of words that I would want to sort of pick out for her specifically that she would want to practice on. The first one was models. So the pronunciation of this was slightly off. I would just want her to practice the models. Models. Okay. It's the sound, models. So getting that a little bit clearer. Also the same with the word prophecy. She pronounced it slightly differently, a little bit strangely. So I'd want to hear her say prophecy. So we'll just try and listen and I'll find the spot where she said that.
The author's insight and prediction of the future, but not about the book, not about a prophecy. This author.
So he's a prophecy. It was a little bit off. So it wants to be more confident. Prophecy. So rather than emphasizing the C, prophecy, it's prophecy. So you're emphasizing the first part of the word there, just to make it a little bit clearer. Prophecy. The other one is world. You need to get that sound in. Okay, a lot of people go world. And they do the D and they do the W, but you need to get that sound in the middle. World. Okay, so you need to make sure as you're speaking, your mouth is getting wider and then smaller again. World. In order to get that sort of sound. Your jaw needs to go down and up. world. Okay, just to make that a little bit clearer. The same for watched. A lot of candidates sort of do this where they go, watched. They're trying to end on a D, but when you actually listen to how a native speaker pronounces it, listen to how I say it, watched. What letter am I ending on? Am I ending on a D? Watched. Okay, I'm actually ending on a T sound. So when a native speaker pronounces it, it sounds like watched. You're ending on a T and not a D. So it's when candidates really try and go for a D, this is how it sounds. Watched. Okay, rather than watched. That's how a native speaker would say it. If you go for watched, it depends. So if you're a native speaker, if I'm speaking normally, I end on that T sound, watched. Okay, so that sounds more natural than doing for the watched. So I would just have that candidate be careful on that. And the same for observe. You've got the sort of tricky V sound at the end. So you've got to make sure your teeth are coming up onto your lip. Observe. Make sure your teeth touch your bottom lip. Observe. Okay, so I would recommend to her specifically just to practice those couple of words, just to make sure that they're coming out very clearly. In terms of vocabulary, she had some really great vocabulary, intriguing. She used mind go blank, which was a really nice phrase. Even words that like observed and prophecy were also really good vocabulary words. The way it was quite a novel idea in using novel, not to mean a book, but to mean interesting or intriguing, I thought was great. Very good use of vocabulary. The only issue I had is one time she talked about he has quite a sharp view of human nature, a sharp but intriguing view of human nature. We wouldn't really talk about someone having quite a sharp view. We might say something like controversial. I have quite a controversial view, or has quite a unique view of human nature, but intriguing. Okay, so that was just a slight issue of context. And in terms of grammar, I thought grammar was very strong. There's a couple of minor issues. Things like the perspectives was new to me. If it's perspectives, it should be. That's right, were new to me. And then she was so busy to follow the author, okay? She's saying that in a negative way. She couldn't follow the author, so we should change so to. I was too busy to follow the author, okay? But overall, I thought very good, comprehensive answer, talked nicely, not a lot of pauses or hesitations, a couple of sort of minor grammar issues, but nothing that stopped me understanding what she said. Pronunciation, very good. Vocabulary, very good.
People usually love movies based on best-selling books, like the Harry Potter series, because their stories are already proven by people around the world. Also, movies can fill fans' imaginations of what they've had when they were reading the book. This would make fans excited and wait for the movies based on the best-selling books to be released. I think people who go business trips often could prefer reading ebooks because it is more convenient to carry rather than a hard-covered book. People can use ebooks to kill their time at the airport or on the platform. Also, the disabled would use ebooks as it is added on various functions like an audio service.
Okay, all right, let me just get my other color up. Okay, so in this answer again, in terms of task achievement, in terms of actually answering the question, a sort of very good comprehensive answer, a nice length. So what she's showing me here is that she's willing to speak at length, which is very good. She doesn't sound like she's struggling. She doesn't sound like she wants the interview to be over already so she can go home. So that's very good. So just her only pronunciation I really picked up on was the way she said would. She got und instead of would. So getting that W sound, you've really got to push your lips out, would, to get that W to oo sound. So one thing I always recommend to my students is to practice in front of the mirror. And it's embarrassing, but you've really got to, when you're learning, you've really got to exaggerate your mouth shapes because it helps you get used to it. So it's the would, okay? So pushing your lips out for it. In terms of vocabulary, I really liked how she said using something to kill time at the airport is a really good sort of natural native speaker phrase. But she said at the airport or at the platform. So we wouldn't usually say platform, we would say at the train station. Okay, and we would probably also say on. Kill time at the airport or on the platform or at the train station. To kill time at the airport or kill time at the train station. One thing that she also said is she sort of said this is also for the disabled. And this is kind of like, we wouldn't really say this nowadays because it's kind of talking about them all like they're one big person. So we would just normally say it's also beneficial for disabled people. Is sort of like the more modern way to say it. Or another way that sort of you say, which is more polite, which is sometimes people say differently abled, okay? Because it's supposed to be less prejudiced, because it's sort of not saying that you can't do something, it's saying that you do things in different ways. So this is a sort of more modern, more politically correct thing to say. I did like how she tried to distinguish between books. Hard-covered book is a sort of a specific vocabulary that she's tried to use. Usually in English we call it a hardback book. So that would be something she would want to correct. And in terms of grammar, overall her grammar was also pretty consistent. She talked about something already being proven. Let's just listen to that part again.
People usually love movies based on best-selling books, like the Harry Potter series, because their stories are already proven by people around the world. Also, movies can fill fans' imaginations of what they've had when they were reading the book. This would make fans excited and wait for the movies based.
Okay, so she talks about the fact that people want to go see movies based on books is because their stories are already proven by people around the world. But I would say they're not proven really. Their stories are already loved or their stories are already enjoyed by people around the world. More than proven. And so I think it's just the wrong sort of vocabulary word to choose there. Yep.
On the best-selling books to be released.
So the best-selling books to be released, this is the wrong tense here, and so she needs to go and check that. So if we take a look at the scores, I think in terms of pronunciation, good, clear, and understandable. Of course, there's like an accent, but I mean, we all have accents. I have an accent. American people have an accent, so that's not really an issue for me. So I would sort of have her in that 6.5 range for pronunciation. In terms of vocabulary, I thought her vocabulary was very strong and she did use a couple of less common phrases and vocabulary that was specific to the topic being discussed. So I'd want to give her a 7 for that. Grammatical range and accuracy, I think the issue with this candidate study is the range, especially in terms of showing you're comfortable using different tenses or using conditionals or something like that. So it's about taking the chances that the question gives you. So back in the part 2 about the reading one, she could have said something like, if I was going to read this book again, I would want to read it more slowly so I could more fully understand what the author's message was about human nature. Okay, so getting in that conditional sentence. So they can't give you points for what they can't see. So grammatical range and accuracy, I'd probably put in the sort of the 6 category. In terms of fluency and coherence, I thought that was great, so I would want to bump that up to a 7. So I think overall this candidate's sort of sitting at like a 6.5 overall. Very strong and a lot of good positive points.